So, just setting the agenda for the Townsville STEM Hub. We had a really nice session that Shelley and Inspiring Australia organised with the Queensland Museums, where we got everybody together just to have a brainstorming session. And from that brainstorming session, what we found was not only was there a huge interest in the STEM Hub, but there was also a clear need to have some coordination of what people are doing, how best to then move forward with planning, and then actually what we should do in terms of the implementation of our agenda. So what we found was that we really wanted to inform this by research, and part of the research is today's information session. I'll get to that later, but also that there's a lot of data in this STEM landscape, and we need to take certainly advantage of all that data and that knowledge and use it to better run what we're doing and better coordinate what we're doing. The other thing was that it was clear we needed a plan. There was some money available for the hub through Inspiring Australia. We've put in a grant. Sarah and I sat down and we did that. We've got the all clear to basically invoice before we got approval. So I'm going to stick in an invoice, and that will allow us to get $15,000 of funding to help us run the hub over the next 2 years. So that's really important. So that $15,000 can go towards any activities that we've put down. We've sketched that out. The big focus is National Science Week in 2018, and that's our focus for next year, to make sure that we can coordinate appropriately events leading up to that and events during the week. So involving stakeholders is really important. It's also about making sure that those stakeholders at the national, state and local level are involved so that we get the best outcome. We also talked about communication. We've set up a couple of things like a calendar and also a Slack account just to help communicate with our regional stakeholders, and we'll roll that out. The executive's certainly been using that. We'll certainly roll that out to the other members of the hub. There's 3 target areas we felt from not only the session that we ran where we're all together, but also the executive, that STEM involves the general community. We need to actually involve industry with that. So our industry reps here today are very important for us, because we've got to look at what industry needs, what the communities, the latent needs of the community, and then tie that in with our agenda so that we have some impact around some of the things that we're interested in. Primary and secondary student skills and inspiring them, motivating them, are obviously a key focus for us. Whatever we do, whether it's in science clubs, STEM clubs, whether it's in things you do within schools, whether it's industry engagement, all of those things are about trying to get kids interested in STEM and then holding their attention long enough to be able to get through that middle school phase where they make decisions about doing STEM subjects. So it's a real focus for us in terms of that primary, secondary school engagement and developing their skills in STEM so that we know they're going on to study STEM subjects. The other thing our focus was around professional development. So we really felt that there was a positive need for us to involve ourselves in that. So where it's possible, and people are going to present on some of those issues today, where it's possible to do professional development, where there may be a need, that's very important for us to identify and also go through and implement. So finally, this led us to today. So today was really about sharing. It was about trying to help everyone within the hub membership to understand what each of us are doing and how that then influences what we do in the future. So I think using Sarah's words from just about 3 or 4 minutes ago, was that we do not want to duplicate, we want to augment. We really want to be able to say, if we're going to do something, what's the best way of doing that so that we overlap each other and reinforce those things rather than just do scattergun approach to these things. So I think today is a very important part about that. And the second thing is that we hope that this then delivers the impetus to help us get the hub moving in the direction that we want. So that's my bit for today. At the end of the day, what I'm hoping, and I know people come and go during this session, at the end of the day, just like to pull this together a little bit. We've had a few people pull out, so we're going to squash things in a little bit, and we'll have 15 minutes at the end of the day before 5 o'clock, just to recap on what's happened, for people to be able to do what they need to do in terms of feedback. And that reminds me, on each of the table is an evaluation sheet. I know you may have to go, so could you, before you leave, if it's before the 5 o'clock, fill out the evaluation sheet, write on it anything you'd like in terms of feedback, capture your name, organisation and your contact details, just so that if anybody else is here other than what's on the list, that'll be helpful. All right, next I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to actually look at the ecosystem that exists for STEM engagement.
It's great to have you all here, and I must say I have to keep pinching myself. Based on a dream that started in 2013 and lots of conversations with a lot of people in Canberra, I was told that basically back then I was dreaming, but I knew that Townsville had the potential, and definitely you've come to the party. Over the last year or so, certainly we've precipitated something that I think will be the beginnings of even more exciting reaction, and lots of science little things there for you. Before I get started, a little bit behind the development of this. This isn't just a pretty diagram that was developed for today. I was very fortunate that the Department of Education last year supported me to go on an international fellowship around the world looking at best practice in STEM engagement. Now, I got to go to 5 different countries and visit about 30 organisations, from industry, business, schools, STEM engagement, external providers, peak bodies, and talk to some of the key players in the world around STEM engagement. From that, lots and lots and lots and lots of data was collected. Still to this day, there's a lot of it that hasn't seen the light of day, bar in my notes. But it was put together in a report which was distributed and launched at the end of March for the Australian government. So out of that, we actually did a lot of research also around what's happening in Australia. And this ecosystem map, and yes, anything I can refer to in science, I will. I am a science teacher, so that will happen. And if you aren't that way, you will be soon. You'll just go, ha ha, science joke. The Australian science ecosystem that we mapped was in essence to try and help people see where you fit. Also to help you see any gaps, whether it is a local city map, whether it is you're looking at your organisation and the interactions with your organisation. You can do it at any level, looking at the components within the ecosystem. Some of the important things you need to be aware of is, just like a normal ecosystem, there are interactions and exchanges. For an ecosystem to be very healthy, it's not one thing taking, and not giving something in return. So there is that kind of interaction that you need to be very aware of, but it's also the role that that organisation plays. The reason that that map is also there is sometimes organisations have a belief that they must do everything. Now, realistically, in an ecosystem, you can't produce, you can't eat yourself, you can't do the whole lot. You rely on other things to sustain yourself. In an Australian ecosystem, in a Townsville ecosystem, you rely on other things to sustain yourself. So the interactions, partnerships, communication, collaboration, networking that you have is essential, and events like this are essential to broaden and strengthen the ecosystem. I encourage you to find yourself there, and you may go, well, I'm kind of there and I'm kind of there, but also to look at the roles that you have. Now, I was adamant when we were starting the STEM hub in Townsville that we needed industry. I could see that that was a weakness, and knowing the ecosystem map, there's no point in speaking for a group of people if you don't have that group of people. It's just the same as an organisation trying to plan something for schools, speaking for schools, but not talking to the schools. So if you're engaging with educational institutions, which the STEM Hub aims to do, that actually means talking to the schools and not planning something when all the schools have exams, for example. Little things like that make everything work better. Also, in terms of the interactions, it means that you can drive connections that are really strong by drawing on strengths, but also filling up gaps and weaknesses. So within this, if you know that, say for example, and I will pick on the bit that I'm familiar with, the education institutions are strong enablers and connectors. It would be really, really good then if you're trying to be someone from industry. You might be fairly good at enabling, but if you link in and plug into educational institutions, you're more likely to make sure whatever you've spent time and money on is more effective. In terms of this, it is just one idea, but the idea is that within our ecosystem, within our STEM hub, that each person has a voice, each person is able to contribute, and each person can plug in and make that little part of what they're contributing stronger. And this is something you can take back to your organisation, and when you're looking at your STEM engagement plan, if you don't have one, I'm happy to help you with that. Think about, how can I better engage? What parts am I not engaging with? And it doesn't mean you need to do all of them, but you might identify there's a part missing. Because in essence, the one that's sitting at the bottom, the young people that are there, is why we are all in this room. And we need to make sure we're very aware of those connections, very aware of what we do, in order that the representation, the programs, and what we move forward in has the right message, the right opportunities, so our young people can be best prepared for what they have to face, which is a world that requires STEM. So in terms of the ecosystem, I wanted to point it out to you today because I value the fact that we have a lot of people from those different groups. And that is so, so very important, and I thank you for your time. But be aware to take that away and go, well, how can I best connect with the other people, plug in and make sure this STEM hub grows, but also your organisation grows. Both things just as important as each other, and hopefully this is the beginning where in a few years' time we are needing to book out the biggest lecture theatre at JCU for all of us to come, and it's something that is absolutely magnificent instead of being splendiferous. There you go, two very good words. Do I need to hand over to someone? Or are you doing that?
Yeah, I've got a list. Thanks, Sarah. I think that's really important setting to take in while we're trying to talk through some of these issues. You'll see these presentations actually developing these ideas. We're looking for crossovers, for links, for integration. That's really what this is about today. So if you see things, write down your evaluation sheet and say, yes, this is what we should be doing, so that we can feed that back in.
Okay, I will try and be brief. I know lots of you. My name is Megan Spandler, and I'm a project officer for a program which is a national program called Scientists and Mathematicians in Schools. I'm based here in Townsville. The program in a nutshell connects STEM professionals to to teachers in schools with the hope that they'll work together to enthuse and engage students to get into STEM. I have a little quote there from one of our participants. Zoltan's actually a mathematician down in Canberra, and he actually used this sort of teaching and learning sort of conference. And I think it really tells me or speaks to me about why the program exists in the first place. So you guys can all read, but for the sake of recording maybe, children and teachers are more likely to believe that science is useful in the real world if they meet an actual person who lives the dream. And if I've got any research scientists, a comment was made to me that sometimes it's the nightmare, but we'll stay with the dream for this one. Teachers and students can be invigorated by new ideas and learning about real applications from the horse's mouth. And I think anyone who, normal people as well, but teachers particularly, if things have relevance to students, if they have a real life context, they're much more engaged and enthused and interested and much more likely to pick up on it. And they do have to meet people who actually do these later in life in order to feel that, it is important and real and valuable. So that's what the program hopes to do. There's some lovely photos of some local partnerships there. There's already quite a few partnerships that are happening. I think it was asked in our little 3-minute thing what your passion is. My passion is science. I love it, and I love to connect people who love science to each other to hopefully get the kids really interested and enthused. And look, how it all works and the intricacies not going to happen in 3 minutes, but you're always welcome to talk to me and ask me anything if you are interested. So, how did I go? Did I make 3 minutes?
45 seconds. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
With your new approach to this, can you just let people know how SIRE have changed the way they've done things in 30 seconds? From the previous
25 seconds.
Yeah, look, I think what John's referring to is SIRE education has changed a lot in the last 5 years, and really now we're a series of people who have represent the Townsville and North Queensland region for national programs. We no longer have a science centre that does, practical activities. Is that what you're referring to, John? Yeah. And hopefully we're still very valuable. It is quite different to what it was 5 years ago. We hope to rebuild as well. But, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Annie Van Homrey. Thank you to John and to Sarah for putting this together today. It's awesome to have some like-minded people talk about our love of STEM. My job is at St Pat's College on the Strand. I'm the Dean of Curriculum there. So part of my role involves super exciting things like looking after teacher replacements in the morning and timetabling. Yep, teachers are nodding. But the actual exciting part of my job is leading teacher innovation, particularly with a focus on STEM. So before this role I was the head of science and I'm a physics and maths C teacher, so this is right up my alley. Today I just want to tell you some of the things that we're doing at St Pat's to engage our girls in STEM. We're an all-girls school, and as you probably are aware, there's a national gap in between genders with girls uptaking STEM subjects in schools and going on to pursue STEM careers out once they finish. That's something that I'm really passionate about, being a girl and being a girl in STEM, and I think that our girls should be able to enjoy STEM, achieve in STEM, and go on after school to have awesome careers in STEM as well. So some of these programs we've put together that we're running now are all about empowering our young women in STEM and also women in the wider community as well. Our big flagship program at the moment is our #STEM Like a Girl conference. That's coming up on the 19th of August, and that's a conference we're putting on for girls from any school all over North Queensland, aged 10 to 15. The reason for that age group is that's generally the time when girls disengage with STEM. It's a time when they decide that for some reason they can't do maths, they're not good at science, they're not interested in it, that's when they drop out of it. So we're trying to target those girls and get them to love STEM by having a day of hands-on workshops with a whole bunch of different academic and industry representatives who are experts in their field. So we've got, yes?
No, I was just saying you had 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute? Okay, I'll talk faster. Anyway, so that's our first day. So yeah, we're branching out to JCU, UQ, QUT and GHD and a whole bunch of other reps to come along and work with us on that day. The next one, so last year we took a bunch of girls to America for STEM Trek, which was a week at space camp learning to become astronauts, followed by tripping all around the USA to go to Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Centre, Silicon Valley, and we're doing it all again next year. I get to go on that trip, so another perk of the job, which is really, really cool. And we've seen a huge uptake in our science subjects because of these initiatives. So we're actually bucking the trend at St. Pat's. We had to introduce a fourth science subject last year, so we introduced marine science because there's such an overwhelming demand from our girls to study science in senior. So that brings me down to the last point. I'll come back to point 3 in a second. We've partnered with JCU this year for our PNG Marine Science program. A lot of our girls come from Papua New Guinea, and this is a program we're putting together to encourage girls to come to our school, study marine, but then stay on and go to JCU as well. And finally, the startup, that's a new subject that we're starting next year that I've been part of creating. It's an innovative approach to education. We're taking away all the curriculum, all the testing, and it's about working with mentors for the girls to do project-based learning, where they get to take control of whatever project they're interested in and go through the design thinking process from woe to go. So that's what's happening at St. Pat's. We'd love you to be involved. If you'd like to be part of it, let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. And that marine science program was actually a part of a funding project by TIQ, so that's Trade and Investment Queensland, and the International Education and Training Group. So that was a part of a grant system that PATS and JC put in for, and it was very successful. And TIG, I just took the trade investment people down to St. Pat's the other day to walk around and show the project, and they were very impressed. So that's another way to get involved, is actually look out for those grants.
Hello everyone. I'm Brett Wass, as John told you. I work here at James Cook University. I'm what's known as the STEM officer. So I work with the Future Students team, so outreach and participation for schools, I suppose, in STEM. So I was employed beginning of last year to assist with 2 main projects to get them off the ground. One of them was the Global Tropics Future, which Wendy will talk about a bit later on. And the other one was Townsville, was called Illuminate Science Clubs last year, but now we've changed the name to Townsville STEM Clubs, and amongst other things, engaging with lots of different parts of the community and schools. So I want to talk a little bit about the STEM clubs today with you. So that's our new logo, did that myself. So as you can see, some of the logos there, we've got partners and sponsors, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So last year we kicked off and we had a very successful year. We ran for, I think it was 16 weeks, and we've changed that format this year to 2 terms, which has turned into 3 terms because it's so popular, of 8 weeks each term. So why was I asked, or why have I even got a job, is really the premise here, and why most of us in the room, you probably hear this over and over. So there's a need in the community. So Meg talked about how CSIRO's changed a fair bit in the last 5 years. So there was a lot of engagement. I know when I was a teacher, I used to see CSIRO a lot in the schools. With the STEM agenda, and so when they finished up their school engagement or double helix clubs and such, there was a big hole, I suppose, left in the community that I suppose older brothers and sisters, I see people that are 15 to 20 now say, oh yeah, I remember the days of the double helix and all those sorts of things. So it's good to hear about it, but I suppose we're trying to fill that gap with, or some of that gap with the STEM clubs. So the other thing, the option for STEM enthusiast kids. So kids that play sport, there's all heaps of stuff for them. Kids that like drama or dance or different things like that. There's not particularly anything organised, and this is feedback from the parents, because I don't have kids that are the age that come to these sorts of things. tell me that this is it, this is the only thing. There might be other small things, but this is something that they see as extracurricular, should I say. It's recognised STEM skills shortage in the pipeline, so we've all heard that story before on the news, and there's a well-known paper, Australian paper, talking about we're going to be lacking the STEM skills. So the university and other institutions are very keen to get on board with this to build the pipeline for STEM. Importance of STEM interest maintained until year 9. So, we've only got 1 minute left.
Oh,
jeez.
Wait, one.
Oh, is that it? Is the time up?
That was it.
Oh, right, okay. All right, so basically,
You've got a little bit of time
all
up
right.
your sleeve, so.
So how was it done? So there's some fairly big underpinning things why we have it. It's been successful because of those things, because there is a demand, because there are people willing to support it, and it's seen as important. How? So we've got some very important partners. We've got Inspiring Australia, who help with some funding. We've got Museum of Tropical Queensland, who we shared a club with last year, who are one of our major sponsors this year, help us out a lot. And Libby, who's up the back there, has been a big part of the club, so assisting to get that up and running last year and continuing this year. Townsville City Council, they support us and also give us some funding to help some kids that can't afford it to come, so they sponsor some places, and JCU obviously through me and facilities and everything else. So we've got some seed funding, we need the JCU coordinator, and we've also got the grad dip students that are studying to be STEM teachers, so it's an awesome avenue for them to get engaged, as well as for us to use them in their community service hours. What do we do? Come over, I've got to go in about half an hour, and at 3:30 come past the little engagement room, probably more like 4 or when you're finished. Poke your head in if you want, and we'll be running around with little robots and getting them to dance and things like that. So I don't think I have... Yeah, so that's our STEM program. So we've had 8 weeks, all very high engagement type stuff, fun stuff, sort of around digital technologies, and some of the feedback we got from parents from last term was these are the things to keep. The affordability is one of the key things. Someone said there for parents, but the kids really like the emerging I suppose the emerging parts of STEM as well. So the things around robots, engineering, inventing, coding. They'd still like the science and dissection and all those sorts of things, but particularly these were one of the things they highlighted. That's it from me.
Can you go back one? Thank you.
Okay, so my name's Rebecca Smith. I'm the head of department at the Cathedral School, and we are a co-ed Anglican boarding school that caters for infants through to Year 12 students. So what do we do to engage with STEM? I guess we, when I thought about this, we kind of focus on 3 key ideas: innovation in the classroom, inspired by research, and staying connected. So 3 co-curricular programs that occur across our junior, middle and senior school. In our junior school, a teacher has been titled as the IT integrator, and he delivers lessons from prep to year 6 students, and the lessons are all around 4 central strands: robotics, coding, digital media creation and prototyping. And the teachers actually go along to that as well and watch him, so they're a part of it. And then the concept is that the students are obviously creating problem-solving skills, creativity, design, they're wondering. I think the subject's actually called Wonder in the junior school. And then they take that back into their normal content strands, and they do a lot of problem-based projects associated with that. In our middle school, a new subject was created this year called Sparks, and the concept of that subject was students basically creating a question that they wanted to answer and then engaging with an individual project to be able to answer that question. Again, this allows for developing critical and creative thinking skills, but it also encourages a lot of personal responsibility because they're in charge of their own individual project. So that's something new. Also in the middle school, we are in the early stages of implementing our Thinking Science program, which some of you may have heard of before. We're under the direction of Tim Smith. He's the Director of Cognitive Architecture, and the point of that program, it's evidence-based. It's designed to accelerate learners' cognitive function, and the students basically work together in a team and tackle problems collectively, and then reflect on the thinking processes they use. And so that kind of sits inside our 7 to 8 science curriculum. We have lots of extracurricular programs. A few I haven't listed on here in the junior school, an ICT Explorers Club and some computer clubs, but the 2 I was going to talk about was our Maths and Engineering Club and Sustainable Guardians Group. So our Sustainable Guardians group, one of the things they've been involved in is monitoring the water quality in the redevelopment of our school lagoon, because that's been a bit of a project, and having access to an architecture and environmental scientists in order to do that. And then they, I guess, engage with our community in terms of encouraging students to be a part of Plastic Free July, except we're doing Plastic Free August because of the school holidays. Like many other schools, Science Week's huge for us. We do science food fairs, scavenger hunts, lots of workshops in the laboratories. But one of our really exciting Fridays, the annual quiz in the quad, and the kids compete against one another for Science Week Quiz Champion, and they love that. And then lastly, on one of our biggest, and I guess it's with everyone, and hence why we're all here today, is about staying connected and connecting with experts. And that's one of our major things that we try and do at our school. So whether that's through the Scientists, Mathematicians and Schools program, Reef Guardian program, through JCU, through connecting with other HODs and finding out about what other people are doing, and being a part of that is kind of where it all fits in for us. So, done.
Thank you.
I have a lot more to say, but
Well, we've actually got 5 minutes. We've actually got 5 minutes, so if there's anything you want to add. I was going to say the Young ICT Explorers event last weekend. Cathedral had so many teams I didn't know where to start. But it was fantastic, so that coding's paying off, obviously.
yes, and one student in particular, so our junior school is pretty huge on it, and and I'm the head of middle school and senior school, so I don't have a lot to do with the junior school, but obviously we do connect. And one of the things was that these older students are going back to the junior school, and they're now mentoring the junior school students, so that's something that's quite exciting that's come out of that. And one of the boys actually won it on the weekend, and he was in the middle school, so he'd come from that developing in the junior school. So
Yeah, no, that's great. How many people were involved with last week's program, the Young Explorers? Yeah. No, I think it's the biggest one I've been to. MacLeod, would that be right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more student participating over the last year.
Yeah, no, it was massive. So it was a really big event, and well done to all the organisers. Okay, now we're literally a little bit in front because we had someone missing. Are there any questions so far that people want answered?
I did have a question for Annie.
Yep.
Can I ask her quickly? Because it might help other people. How do we sign up for the 19th of August event for the hashtag STEM?
It's all online, so
All
if you
online.
go to our school Facebook page or our website, there's an online form that you just fill in. We are nearly at capacity. We've actually had to extend it because it's in such high demand, but we still have some spots left for girls if they're interested. Okay, any school.
Yes, Paddy MacLeod's my name. I'm the head of the science department at Curwen. And I guess what we're trying to do at Curwen is we want to sort of light that spark, ignite that interest in the kids on one hand, but on the other side of the equation also make them feel that they can make a difference, so they can actually do things. So we have two parts to what we do. We have the sort of in the classroom stuff, and this side which is the curriculum, and then down here we have the enacting change stuff, which is sort of outside the classroom. If I go first to the curriculum side, we're very lucky. We've actually taken out of line, we've got an elective set up now, a STEM elective, which enables us to move a little bit away from the curriculum, so we're not sort of straitjacketed by what we have to do there. That is for grades 8, 9 and 10, and they get 3 lessons per week, each of 70 minutes, and it can be anything from, we can do the Crestus CSIRO, the gold and the silver medallions. They can do robotics. There's also, for some of them, there's advanced mathematics. In fact, some of the Year 12s actually go up to do the first year, I think it's MA 1000 that they do at university. Or we can have them out in the field working with aquaculture and that sort of stuff. So we try and do a very broad range of things in the classroom. The other thing we do in the classroom, obviously, is engage with SIMS. So that's getting the expert advice. We have partnerships with people at JCU, at Ames, at UQ, a range of other places where we get that expertise coming in. And that's all designed to get the kids really interested in science. And it's wonderful seeing some kids in that program, which does require them to be doing well in science. We also take some who just love science. They're maybe not the top flyers, but they love the science and how engaged they get. We then try and move them across to the other side, which is the enacting change. So we have a number of programs there, some of which are in partnership with other organisations, where we get kids out and about doing things. So we have a little club called Green Frogs, and they run various activities. They've got a garden, we also make little weevils that eat Sylvania. And that we take that out and it clears the waterways, which is done in partnership with, I think, JC originally. We have Coral Watch, where we have students. There's a couple of students who've never even been snorkeling. We had them down on Heron Island. They were diving down, monitoring the coral. We're taking them up to Indonesia at the end of this year, where we're going to partner with other schools that are doing it. So we get them out and about enacting change. And finally, this is again about whetting people's appetite. This is mainly for the grade 7s at this stage. We just have a STEM club where we play with drones, and we go into little robotic competitions and things like that. A lot of this is very much available that could be used across other schools within Townsville, and I'd hopefully they could share some of their stuff as well, so it makes it easier for everybody. If we've got this up and running, you've got something else up and running, we can broaden everybody's experience. Beep, 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 beep. So about
Any questions? Any questions for Patty?
Any questions? No? Okay.
So Patty, just so you're such a big school, just give us a breakdown of what you look like in terms of your STEM subjects at the different levels. So
Year 12, we would have probably, we have 1 Maths C, we have 2 Maths B classes.
Yep.
We'd have 4 biology, 4 chemistry classes, 2 physics classes, and then we also run marine science, Science 21, and we also have a certificate in aquaculture as well, certificate 2. Grade 10, of course, we have maybe 15 classes at each year level, so they'd just be studying the Australian curriculum. For SRT, which is what we call our STEM extension subject, this one over here, we have about 60 students in grade 8, grade 9 and grade 10 who elect to do that subject.
Okay. So that's interesting. How does that figure with other people in terms of proportions? You've got 15 classes, so...
We've got about 400 at each year level. A little bit under
level.
It's big, yeah.
Yeah.
But 75% of our cohort, or 70% of our cohort, is on the vet pathway.
Yep. So that's
70%.
70%. That's good. Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Tricia Lonergan from Holy Spirit Catholic School. I'm going to be talking about one of the projects that our primary school has been engaged in. It all began at the end of last year when Sarah brought up the STEMX and we had the Professional Development Day. So there was a handful of people in the room here who were also at that Professional Development Day. Stand beside the desk. One of the things we looked at there was we were doing some research skills with the CSIRO? It was Questacon, sorry. And we were looking at mosquitoes, and my group in particular were looking at mosquitoes. I was speaking to another teacher a couple of weeks later who was also at that. He happened to be in the mosquito group as well. We thought it would be great what we experienced to do with a group of students. So that's what we engaged with. So there's 4 schools across Townsville. There's myself, Cranbrook State School, Bluewater State School, and Southern Cross Catholic College, all in different areas around. And we're going through the process of doing the engagement. We had one day with Heather and with Tanya out here at James Cook University, where we had Dr. Professor Simon Robson, who talked us through the mosquitoes. We engaged with the students, actually used this space, this brand new space as well. We did some investigations, took it back to our schools, and within our schools now we're working on how we can further this, how we can work with the science and the technology. Technology is my passion, definitely, but we're working with the science as well and the technology to create a solution to the mosquitoes and to actually see what is around. It's a local topical problem that we have here in Townsville. We're at the stage now of creating our mosquito traps. The children are ready now. Our next stage is a road trip. So we are going around the other schools to see at the other sites what's actually happening, and Heather hopefully is coming with us, and Tanya also. So we did engage with James Cook University from a primary school perspective, which was quite an intriguing prospect at the time. They were all very agog at the big aquarium outside there. So from there then we will actually do a full presentation of the 4 schools, probably back out here at James Cook University. So that's just one small project that we're doing. As I said, technology is more my thing, but we are engaging in the STEM field. Any questions? Sarah?
I know you're passionate about IT. Could you tell me a bit about QSite?
Oh, I can, yes. QSite, Queensland Society of Information Technology for Educators. So I am the chapter chair for QSite here in Townsville also. With that, our main goal is to provide professional development to teachers around technology and how you can best engage with it in your school site. We deal with robotics and coding, and drones is the new space, the new black, I guess. So we're moving into that field as well. So if you're interested in becoming a member of QSite, you can obviously go to the QSite website, or if you're wanting just to be informed about what's happening with QSite, you can just join the discussion list on the QSite website, and that way you'll get emails that come out about professional developments that are being offered.
Can I ask a question a little bit about the project?
Sure.
So what you're actually doing inside the project?
Oh, what we're doing as
With the mosquitoes.
Oh, so well, first of all, we're looking at the 3 tools that we looked at, which was the descriptive tool, the design tool, and the fair testing. So the children have looked at each of those tools and they're designing experiments around those. In particular, the descriptive tool we're all doing, so we're all catching mosquitoes at our sites and doing the descriptive tool to look at what mosquitoes we have, basically identifying the mosquitoes that we have on our particular sites, because we are...
So classifying?
Yes.
Yep. And?
So we wanted to give them an introduction to sort of statistics, experimental design, that sort of stuff at a primary level. So we talked about the different ways that you could approach a problem. So you could, go into an environment and describe what's happening. You can actually design a fair test, or, the innovation and the, sort of design aspect. So we're trying to get students to see that there are many ways that they could look at a problem, and we wanted to make sure they all had a background knowledge in the biology of the mosquitoes. So on the first intro day to JCU, they got the biology, the ecology, the kind of thinking behind science and innovation, and then they went back and did all sorts of amazing things at their schools as well. And the other exciting thing is that Tanya linked up for the pre-service teachers to go in and sort of come back to the schools as well. So what we're trying to do is bring science at the university level, education at the university level, and primary schools together.
And if anybody, the children then went and did some dreaming about what experiments they want to do. They're desperate to use blood, but of course they're just so, I can't get over how blood.
Sorry, desperate to use what?
Blood.
Oh, blood.
Yeah, they really want to use
print it if
blood.
you want.
Yeah, 3D print some blood? Yeah, absolutely.
What year level was it with?
I'm working with grade 5s and 6s.
And was it the whole year level from all the 4 schools?
No, we
Or just-
collected, well, the bus, no, we limited it to 12 students.
Oh, okay, so they, yeah.
Yeah, so
So was
we've
it
got,
part of an extracurricular, or it was in part of their curriculum?
no, extracurricular, we do it at lunchtimes and before school.
I think we kind of dreamed that it would be a pilot, and we could
Yes.
try it with smaller numbers and iron out a few of the wrinkles, and then, try it again.
Flow with it from there.
More
So it was-
schools are willing
Yeah.
to come in, but we wanted to get also, I think, a question that was really relevant to kids. So kind of talking about what you were, Patty, getting them to feel like they can make a difference and change and understand issues that are really topical for them.
Dylan?
Would you like some of the bi-suburb mosquito complaints and the 40 species?
Would we?
listed down?
Yes, I think we might. That would be lovely.
Yeah, what about the Wallbachia experiment stuff? Is that
They said they were finishing, so I contacted them. They said they were, sort of
Is that school
closing.
been home with them all?
Yeah, and so there is actually a Cairns mosquito research unit up in Cairns on the Cairns campus in town. And so we had talked about the possibility of maybe taking the students up there to see the research that's happening there as well. So anyway, pilots, very exciting.
So we're heading towards stage 2 of a 3-stage, and we're not sure what stage 3 looks like yet. would be the best way to round that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tricia. Just by way of integration, I remember what my son was doing his dip ed round at Aikenvale, and he said, "What can I do with mosquitoes?" And I said, "Well, actually, you could probably do an orienteering thing and actually get the kids to draw a map of the school and then find where all the larvae are." And he said, "Really? You think they'll find larvae?" Anyway, it was really amazing because they came back with all the sites over the school where the larvae were actually growing. And it was a really good exercise and the kids loved it. So, and it tied it back in to the public health issues because that's what he was really looking at. So he had looked at public health issues. These were refugee kids. These were ESL kids. So it was really interesting to see how they got involved in it, did the orienteering, did the identification, and went through and looked at the public health issues, which they could relate to Africa, which was where they were coming from. So that was good. Ryl's from JCU. She is in the Vice-Chancellor's office and helps us out with a whole range of things around innovation policy and whatnot. So I'll let Ryl do her thing. I'll push the button.
That doesn't say very much. I actually thought when I signed up for this that I was just signing up to come along and listen, and then I got a spot and I thought, oh, okay. So mine's a little bit different to what's been provided today. I just wanted to let people know about what JC is doing with the Athena Swan project. So that's being run through the Australian Academy of Sciences. It has put this on, and it's also the Science in Australia Gender Equity Group. So it's SAGE as a short name, but people think that's a publisher, but it's not. It's actually Science in Australia Gender Equity. So JCU is going to try and get Athena Swan Bronze accreditation in 2019. So what this means is that we've got a whole program of works that we're working towards to reach a standard. It comes out of the UK, the original Athena Swan, and all Australian universities now are participating, as well as other research institutions as well. So So the way that it works is that we've put together a gender self-assessment team here at JCU. It's being led by our Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Tropical Environments and Societies, Professor Ian Gordon. And there's a number of people who are on the team, and I'm one of those people. We're also building a website, so that'll be ready soon, and you'll be able to find more information and resources about the work that we're doing on that website, but it's just in progress. The work of the team is we're actually collecting data on our current gender equity standards, our policies and our practices. And the whole purpose of the project is to make sure that we can promote and retain women in STEM, and particularly in, we know what happens with women in STEM within academia and other places in terms of promotion and not being represented with equity representations. So we're collecting a whole lot of data on that, policies. We're identifying where the problems might be. Sorry, 1 second. And making some plans around that as well. So focusing on recruitment, retention and promotion, and qualitative and quantitative data. So we've just found out today that we have some funding to do the qualitative part of the work. Okay, I think that's it. That's on my time anyway, isn't it? So, yeah.
Okay, just before you go, thanks. Questions around that program?
This is something that all universities are now doing, would you say?
Yeah, I think that every university has now signed up. There's been a couple of rounds. We've just entered into the last round, and so we're really quite ourselves and the other universities who have come in our cohort are quite at the beginning of the process. Some other universities are more advanced. The thing that's important is that funding is going to be tied to this as well. So for all of the reasons that we need to do it anyway, it will impact on funding, and that's something that drives behaviour change too.
So you can choose to opt in, but if you don't, you won't get funding.
I think eventually that's how, it'll work. Yeah.
Will you have a sense of where JCU sits at the moment? How big is the task in 2019?
What we have to come up with by 2019 is a program for how we'll address it. We don't have to have solved all of the problems.
So, because I don't think that's actually possible to do by 2019. So I think that we should be able to reach the benchmark of having a really good plan, know where we are, know where we need to go, and have some plans in place. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryl.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. As John said, my name is Wendy Bode and I'm Manager or Deputy Principal of the Global Tropics Future Project at Burrangale High. Now, I've got notes, not because I don't know what I'm saying, I'm just going to try and control my excitement because I get really passionate about this project. Now, first of all, why would we have a Global Tropics Future Project? It came about a couple of years ago and it aligns with Education Queensland's Advancing Education Strategic Plan. And in that plan, there was a definite point about inspiring a passion for STEM in schools. And one of the action plans was about engaging students in years 5 to 9 using virtual STEM academies. Now, JCU has a statement of the tropics, State of the Tropics report, and the actual statement of strategic intent. And in there, they're talking about students boosting the outcomes and pathways for students in STEM into the university. So really, the Global Tropics Future is an alignment of these agendas and these programs so that we can get students engaged in STEM from years 5 all the way through to university. Now, back in 2015, Burrangale State High School was chosen to be the lead and host school of the Global Tropics Future Project. And a lot has happened in that time. The whole point of it, though, really, from our side, is that we want to enrich students in years 5 to 9. We want to give them those extra opportunities that they wouldn't normally get in STEM programs. And we actually have 3 target areas: Indigenous students, low socioeconomic students, and those that are gifted or capable. So we're talking about in our plan top 2 bands, but not necessarily. It's those students who you see in your classroom that you think could actually be engaged in the STEM program. Now, currently, we have 106 young scholars from 15 schools in North Queensland. We're talking about Dormagee State School, Yondan State School, Cloncurry, Boogaman Community School, Proserpine, East Eyre, Ingham, and 5 or 6 schools in Townsville. In August, we will have, I've only got 1 minute left. In August, we will have 121 young scholars from 19 schools. So it's quite a large project indeed. Many, many facets, many ideas, many concepts coming out of GTF. Only one I wanted to talk about today was the Queensland Virtual STEM Academy. Burrangale State High School is now an official Virtual STEM Academy. There's only 2 other places in the state that are academies, the Queensland Academy of Science, Maths and Technology in Brisbane, and Cairns is actually going to have a Global Tropics Future project as well. They start in August, modelling off what we have achieved in the last 18 months. Now, the Virtual STEM Academy, you can see a picture here of these students. The students go into a dynamic platform, virtual platform, and they actually engage with experts from JCU or Townsville City Council, industry, anywhere, any experts that we can get into the lesson, into the classroom, to actually help the students go through the design thinking process. An example that we have at the moment...
That's right, Wendy, we've got 4 minutes up our sleeve, so...
An example of a grand challenge that we have at the moment is called Tropex Innovation, and we've teamed up with the Sport and Exercise Department at JCU here, and the lecturers and PhD candidates come in and mentor the students through their prototyping, decision-making time. And it's a 10-week program, 1 lesson a week. Now, we had another lesson this morning, and the students have actually prototyped a T-shirt with sensors in it, so that it sends messages to their app on their phone via Bluetooth to tell the person wearing the shirt that you're doing too much exercise, you're not doing enough exercise. So, sorry, the whole problem of the Tropex was about getting us to move more and exercise more. So they spend 10 weeks in this virtual environment. And you can see the student on the left there is year 7 students from primary school, and she's explaining to the other kids in this virtual platform about her prototype. It is absolutely amazing to hear the rural and remote students. They are my favourite group because it just brings tears to my eyes. You see their faces light up. They don't get these experiences anywhere else. So I suppose there's so much more to talk about, but if you have any ideas or you want to be involved in this Global Tropics Future project, just give me a ring, or we've got a Facebook page or a website page, Facebook page, just contact us. We're more than interested. The possibilities are endless. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, are we allowed to use, are other people allowed to utilise the platform? This is the IC,
Yes.
is it?
No,
Through deed and such
Yeah.
things.
Marie will
with
probably
all the
talk about
legalities.
Come back up here. Come back up here.
The IC platform is in trial period at the moment with these 3 organisations. We have extended it now until the end of 2018 because it was so successful. And other groups do use IC. Marie will talk about that in her talk as well. But yeah, it's still in trial, but we can talk about how we can access that, definitely.
Yep.
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Okay, no, it's fantastic. It's been a really hard slog from the last 12 months or so to get the virtual academy up, because the Queensland State Ed, bless them, have very strict rules around the sorts of things you can do, and that's made things quite difficult. But certainly I think we've got a platform now that allows us to access the students from all around the region, which is fantastic. And as just listing the schools there, you can see how wide this is going. So it's great that these kids can actually get a sense of what STEM's about in really remote locations, which is fantastic.
All right, so thank you, John. I just want to spend a few minutes, I guess, focusing on the M in STEM. And I think sometimes the glitz and the glamour of the S, the T and the E means that the M sort of gets left out a little bit, and some people think it means medicine, and perhaps there's an argument to say that medicine is in all of this, or is influenced by all of this. So certainly put medicine in there, put a few other things in there too. But I'm going to talk about mathematics. And so I read the blurb for this this afternoon, and it spoke about, I think, an ecosystem. I guess social scientists might have a label like community of practice. And I guess that's what this is about. So it's got an element that deals with teachers. So Insights was a project about teacher education, so pre-service teacher training. And it was about how we optimise what's going on in the universities to make sure that teacher graduates are better prepared for the rigours of the classroom. And then we've got this project here, which is the Queensland STEM Education Network, QSEN. And it's more around engagement of students in the classroom, students outside of the classroom, and then influences of student choice. And to package all this together in terms of mathematics, what we've done is put a tropical or a Queensland maths hub together, okay? And this is the region of influence, and we have consulted with teachers and students across these towns in North Queensland, and the result of that discussion is this hub over here. Okay, so it has elements to do with helping teachers teach in the classroom. It has elements to do with engaging students and so on. So what I wanted to do was focus on one of the big ticket items that's come out of this, and it's been quite successful. And so I don't need the sound, you can just watch the pictures. But this is the MEOW program. So MEOW stands for Maths Explains Our World. And it is part of the QSEN project, so it's about engaging students in STEM. And what this project does is it gets the expertise across the university and it places it in front of the students in terms of how people in different disciplines use mathematics in what they do. So the aim is to give students an understanding of the breadth of application of mathematics. Okay? We couldn't do this project without all of those people in the disciplines giving their time, and they gave it for free to come up with this program. So we've had about 15 academics involved in this program. It's run in Townsville 3 times, it's running in Cairns currently, and we're going to do a mini MEOW in the Burdekin over 3 Wednesday afternoons later in August. Okay, so it's a way. So I guess this shows the depth of feeling about how maths is important in terms of preparing students for university. I think that's one of the big challenges that we have, is that there's lots of mixed messages about the value of different things by the way we work. And so we do need to have that very strong community of practice. So we have a link there. If you put Maths Hub on the end of the www.jcu.edu.au, then you'll hit us. And then there's a way that you can contact us. You can look through our resources. You can find our Speakers Bureau. So again, 50 people across North Queensland have volunteered to give up their time to go and talk to students in the schools about how they use maths in their careers. Okay? So these were the types of things that school teachers were after in terms of helping them do their job in the classroom. Of course, it's not perfect. We're very open to working out how we can do it better. That's where you guys come in. Again, it's a community of practice. No single person or entity within the university can do it by themselves. It has to be a collaborative effort. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Just because we have a minute to say there's Shaun. Any questions?
Shaun, yeah, I do have a question for you. And just an observation from first-hand experiences at home, whose son did that program, which is such an excellent program. I just wonder how you envisage it being sustainable in the long term. Is it reliant on people volunteering their time into the program, or can you see a model?
I can see a model.
Be sustained in a financially viable way.
I can see a model that works. What we've tried to do is to get students involved, so PhD students, upper undergraduates, involved in sort of the running around, or the helping out. And there are certainly noises in the higher education community that type of work that postgrads do needs to be documented and be part of their portfolio when they go out. So if we can garner that sort of expertise, and it can even happen in the upper undergraduate level, there's this thing called work integrated learning that universities are working towards, and I know that some universities in the south do work with schools as part of that WIL program in their third year Bachelor of Science, for example. So there's definitely models that can be there that can help make this sustainable.
I think the other thing that's really nice too, and Shaun touched on this, is because it's maths in each discipline, when, it might be sports science one week and geology another, it's not calling on the same academics all the time. So it's
yeah,
really
it does
nice.
call on academics to add on to their additional.
I think they see a payoff that at the end of the day might be a long-term effect, and that's one of the challenges we have in higher education is thinking in the long term that the students coming in will be better prepared and they'll be easier to work with when they get here. Okay, so we do have to think about that long-term
Self-interest. Sorry.
It's grade 8s at the moment.